Welcome to another episode of Ore Insiders. Take a break from the grind. Hard hat off, tap into the signal. Each episode, we go deep with the top miners in ore. How they think, why they hold, and how they win. Let's get into it.
Okay, then welcome to the fourth episode of Ore Insiders with our fantastic co-host, well, our host, really, Brian, long-time Ore fanatic, Brian. You might know him by his plush bird profile picture. He doesn't have it on Twitter, but the bird has been on many adventures.
It has.
And our wonderful guest for this evening is MadHatter. I don't know his actual name. He might not want to share that. But yeah, welcome on board. Welcome up to the stage, MadHatter. You can unmute your mic whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Spuddy. Thank you, Brian. I appreciate the invite and looking forward to the conversation today.
Me too. So, everybody, how's the week been? It's been a wild one, hasn't it? In crypto, in TradFi, it's been an absolute nutty world. I can't even speculate what's going to happen next in the Strait of Hormuz. I can't expect crypto to pump. I can't expect it to dump further. It seems we're at a bottom. It is just an absolutely nutty situation, and I'm paralyzed with fear almost, but I will keep mining. I'll keep digging. How about you, MadHatter? What do you think of this current political socio events, and when is all this going to be over?
You know, it's hard to say when it's going to be over, but I can't help but think about December 2022 timeframe. Things were bad, or really bad if you're a Solana veteran, but it does feel like the bottom is near. It's really hard to confirm that feeling, but only one way to find out. We have to keep mining, like you said.
Keep mining. Yeah, absolutely. The whole situation, the whole feel of crypto right now feels like everybody's evacuated ship. Everybody's manned the lifeboats. They're running away from every product. Everything's down 90%. Kind of a heavy opener here. Sorry, guys. Kind of heavy opener, but it's what's on my mind lately. I'm sure it's on everyone's mind that crypto feels a little tepid right now. And
the bear market is really weighing on many people right now. It's hard. It's very hard out there. People are so used to the trenches and so used to things doing 100x.
Yeah,
nothing's doing a 1x at the minute.
Yeah.
Everything's going down still. It's very much. I'm probably a little bit more pessimistic than I should be here right now, but I'm feeling this is very much in the depths of a crypto winter.
Yeah, absolutely.
We keep trying to have these little legs up, and then it breaks back down, and we're very much in a channel.
I'm at a huge advantage over you guys. I live in Chicago, so winters are fun for me.
Sounds fun. Yeah, heating oil and all that stuff is just, it's kind of one of those things where people have to decide: do I heat my home or do I buy more crypto? For a lot of people, it's getting that way, especially with the AI economic culling that's happening for developers. That's kind of a crazy thing that's happened this last year and a half. Those guys who are losing jobs to AI, whether it be wise on the company's behalf or not, maybe it's a little too early for that, but those things are all kind of weighing down crypto, because who's going to be buying crypto more than tech savvy nerds, right? It's kind of their forte. And if they're not getting the disposable income to do so, crypto seems even deeper rut. I mean, I think the last time I remember it being this bad was right after the invasion of Russia into Ukraine, and crypto felt like it just fell off an absolute cliff. Of course, 1010 is recent. That was a bad day as well. But overall, for me, I feel like this is probably the worst sentiment I've felt in crypto ever, because we've tried everything. We've tried meme coins. We've tried NFTs. We tried DeFi. We tried all those things that kind of came up organically from the ground up in crypto. And each year it was something new. Look at this new thing. Look at this new thing. Look at this new thing. And now there's not as much new stuff out there. It's rather that we have to double down on the good stuff, the stuff that we want the space to become, like ore. And any other unique novel products with the revenue, with real yield and so forth. So you've heard this spiel before. We need that to advance in crypto. And I think that's why it feels boring, right? However, I did notice on my E-Trade account today, it said crypto is coming, right? So E-Trade, that's a boomer stock trading platform for Americans. That is penetration into new markets. We're continuing to penetrate into new markets. And these kind of painful bear markets will be a distant memory one day when everybody has access to all manner of assets. And I think baby steps, of course. I don't expect to see OR on E-Trade, but OR is available on Coinbase. If anybody has seen that or not, I'm not sure if y'all are aware. But Coinbase allows you to use, I guess they're partnering with a DEX. I'm not sure if it's Jupiter or other DEX, but you can buy OR on Coinbase. So these coins, which were, more niche, harder to get, are becoming more accessible. And I think it's only a matter of time till a few years from now, maybe, that something like even E-Trade would allow, niche products like this on their marketplace. So, but despite the winter, there are big advancements in the space, big advancements and big headway. And despite how much people say Trump destroyed the market, maybe he did, maybe extracted a lot with Trump coin. But there are a lot of good things, legalese-wise, that are going on in crypto right now. Perhaps the Clarity Act will pass this week. A lot of road work is being developed, okay? And that road eventually leads to the crypto expansion that we all want. We're going to have so much more people involved in crypto. It's going to be tied in right with their stonks, right with their crypto accounts. They're going to hold Bitcoin, and if there's more speculative, they'll hold other stuff. They'll hold OR if it survives the long term and it becomes a store value on Solana. Why not? And then, of course, the even more speculative stuff, the meme coins, which I personally stay away from. But there's a lot going on in crypto right now. A lot of good stuff mixed with the terrible bear market conditions. So I'm optimistic on the future, and especially of OR and its ecosystem. So that's kind of a big dump on you guys, but that's been on my mind for a while, so I wanted to touch base on that. MadHatter, let me ask you, how did you get involved in the space? As we typically go through these spaces, we want to learn about our guests, learn how they got started in crypto, and learn more about how they got involved with OR. So if you would give us a quick rundown of how you got involved in crypto and what's your experience been so far.
Sure. Yeah, thanks for the question. I'd say I came to Bitcoin the same way a lot of people do, which is skeptical. I started reading about money, what it actually is, what it's supposed to do. Went down a rabbit hole and read Jeff Booth's Price of Tomorrow. This is way back in 2020, right around COVID, pre-COVID. Learned about deflation. His arguments hit hard to me. Technology does naturally drive prices down. Central banks keep printing to fight that deflation. So I really started to develop a lot more interest in learning about money. So Bitcoin was kind of how I got into the space. Heard some talks from Greg Foss. He's the old OG Bitcoiner, credit markets veteran, and he kind of framed Bitcoin as a default insurance on sovereign debt. And that was an interesting argument as well, different from Jeff Booth. So I kind of got into the space more like intellectual, academic, so to speak. Then I chanced upon Tolly's white paper, which was very interesting to me. I learned about how, to me, the hardest unsolved problem after Bitcoin was how do you make it fast? I used Ethereum. I hated it. It was too slow for my taste. So to me, Solana was really interesting. I really got into it kind of early. I really liked Tolly's credentials. He had a different approach. Proof of history was really cool. Sub-second finality without sacrificing decentralization was frankly unheard of back in the day. So I was really interested in that. So yeah, I got into that space, and yeah, time has really passed. Now Tolly and I talk in DMs all the time. time has passed. It's 2026. I'm pretty involved in the space, but back in 2020, it was all, very different feeling than now.
Yeah, absolutely. There was a big vibe shift, and when Ethereum kind of started getting its legs, man, things accelerated. The space became something nobody could have predicted it would become. And the hard part is, not all apps, not all dApps have found, value. There's been a lot of dead stuff in this space. It's littered. This whole space is littered with corpses. But yeah, I get you. The early, when you said you got involved with Bitcoin like most people, I was thinking in my head, it was drugs, wasn't it? It was drugs. No. A lot of people seem to get in Bitcoin due to Silk Road, but yeah, that's mirrors some of my interests in the Bitcoin space as well. The hard money, the store of value, all the good stuff along those lines, as well as just having something that the government couldn't touch. I think that's something that really attracted me as well, knowing that if I needed to flee the country with a seed phrase in my head, I could extract value by landing with nothing, landing on a plane with nothing but the shirt on my back and getting a phone or a cheap used electronic device, a tablet, and restarting your life in another country if you needed to. So that was always super interesting to me on Bitcoin. I'm not sure if you had those same feelings as well. You said the value of hard money is important to you, but did you ever feel
absolutely.
like, you could just
Yeah,
take it and fly off?
Yeah, yes, but I think my perspective was really, I started looking at the past, which was perhaps very nerdy of me, but I started looking at the history, and literally every fiat currency has this pattern. The pattern seems to involve, at some point, debasement of the currency, whether it's because of political reasons or whether it's something else. They seem to follow a similar pattern. And obviously, Bitcoin, the promise of it was, hey, this is math based. This is outside the control of somebody to just come in and debase. Now, since 2020, my thinking has changed in some ways, primarily because I do think Bitcoin has some structural issues that perhaps will take a longer time to bear out. In fact, I think Bitcoin is falling into the same trap that, frankly, a lot of fiat currencies have in the past, because it doesn't have a good answer for how to solve for friction. So it is hard money, but what we have seen throughout history is whenever there is too much friction, it's too slow, custodians step in. And what happens over time is that the custodial network replaces the actual network. So ask yourself the question, how many people are using the Bitcoin network, actual network?
Yeah.
And the answer is not enough. So what is happening is the transactions have shifted to custodians, whether it is Coinbase, whether it is some other centralized exchange. It doesn't really matter. Whether it's ETFs, they're just different shades of the same story. Ultimately, Bitcoin is falling into the same trap that other large fiat currencies have faced, which is there's too much friction, people fall to custodians, and then custodians control the narrative, the price, the control. So I think OR is very interesting to me because it is on top of a highly performant decentralized network. So in my mind, I think a lot of the risk that comes with Bitcoin long term is resolved just because OR is on a high throughput network. So anyways, I'll pause here.
No, that's a good point.
In case you had any thoughts on
No,
that.
that's a good point. And then, of course, if you're a custodian, what's to say you're not making more paper Bitcoin with all the derivative products out there, the perpetual futures and so forth? Being able to bet literally on the price of Bitcoin is pretty much taking some of that money that would otherwise go into the network out of the network because people are betting on the price movement or doing perpetuals. So all those things are valid. And the friction, yeah, you're right. Nobody's really, no, I think the Lightning Network has been more or less a failure over these last few years. There's no adoption. I don't see Lightning Network. I can't think of maybe 1 or 2 places I've seen Bitcoin accepted, and that's because I went to conventions. And I saw, like in Denver, we had Bitcoin, a bar, Bitcoin, I think it was called, and you could, pay with Bitcoin there. But who would do that? I'd rather just pull out a $10 bill because I don't want to wait there for 5 minutes for my bill to pay. And Lightning, I've never seen it used successfully. So yeah, I definitely agree. Having performance store value that's as fast as a traditional credit card network like on Solana, perfect opportunity for something new to come out like OR that can penetrate the market. At least at first, we have to penetrate the crypto market. We have to capture the mind share of the greater crypto sphere. That OR is a store of value and it lives on Solana and it's lightning fast, right? And it's also private. It's fungible. It's got so many different mechanisms of value retention. I think all that stuff has to be penetrated into the mind space of Solana first, of course, before we can start calling ourselves a larger store of value. What do you think holds us back? Where are all the customers for OR? Where are all the miners? It seems to me, in my opinion, that the degens that are still out there, betting on the meme coins, I feel like at this point they should be a little fatigued of this after years of trying to win at the trenches. I know it's addicting. I know it can be really surprising to see your $100 turn into 10,000, 20,000. But at some point, you got to look at your P&L and say, man, I am down bad. At least that's my experience. I've never had a good meme coin run that has really, really sustained maybe 1 or 2 hits here and there. But overall, anytime I've been on memes, I think my net P&L is probably going to be negative if you look at my whole history of trading. So how do we get these degens into mining? Where do we say, look, guys, you're wasting your money. I mean, good luck to you if you want to, devote your time into the trenches. But look, there is something better. It's here, and you need to get on board before it takes off. How do we get those guys? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, great question. I would reframe your question honestly. I think before we start thinking how to answer the question of what do the degens need to get on board, or we have to ask, is that really the right audience? And the reason I say that is we have some data on this, right? I mean, what's the average hold time of a token on Solana? We're not
4
talking,
hours.
you're being generous,
30 minutes.
right? Yeah.
I don't
So
know.
like we're talking minutes. We're talking minutes. So I think OR is much better suited by positioning itself to customers outside of the current ecosystem. Like we're deep in a bear market, and what OR is offering is not really aligned with somebody who holds a token for a minute or 2.
Oh, true.
Right. So I think it's like, if you're going to sell something, you need to sell it to a willing buyer. And I don't think that the person who holds a token for a minute is really the right audience for OR. Now, that being said, I do think OR will still help them. And eventually they would also be buyers. It's just the same thing that I say on Twitter quite often, which is everyone gets OR at the price they deserve. When I was buying OR, nobody cared. Like literally nobody cared. Nobody knew about this, thought it was dead. Some people care now, but I think a lot more people will care as time passes. But we have to tell our story. And we have to tell our story in a way that resonates with normal people. Because OR, in my mind, is much larger than just any other coin. Like, what is a store of value? Like, is that important? I think for a lot of people it is. But it's not really clear. Like, we have to articulate that story. What is OR trying to be? Well, it's a store of value. It's trying to be frictionless. It's trying to be liquid. It's self-custodied. You can't, the issuers can't alter it. And I don't think that story has been told enough. The founder of the coin can't just change the supply. He can't if he wants to. And he can't change the rate of issuance beyond a certain level. I think that's actually a huge deal. That transparency, that control. Obviously, you touched on privacy a little bit. We have quite awesome privacy integrations for OR already. And as time passes, I think it's going to get better. I really like OR's stance on privacy, which is it's private by choice. You pay for it, which is fine. But it's the ultimate game will be for OR is like, how easy is it going to be to convert to like goods, services, or other assets? And I think we're ways away from that, which is fine. But I think ultimately we need to position ourselves for the audience that is actually extremely receptive to these ideas, which is a lot of people. A lot of people understand about inflation, especially in the context in the last few years when inflation really became a problem. They understand that costs keep going up. They do understand that, but we just have to reframe our story, in my opinion.
That's a good point. I do think that the degens, OR's many things to many people. Your lottery mining, your Motherload, and the soon to be Eldorado seems to be something that points towards more of a, oh my God, I won lottery aspect. So I do agree with you that maybe those aren't the right people to go after, but there's definitely room for them. I mean, this is one of those things where if you're talking to a gambler who loves gambling, who loves scratch offs, I think you could tell them about OR, tell them that you could win an OR, especially as the price climbs. An OR, let's say OR is worth $300 a pop, and we've been holding steady at that point in the future. Hey, this is like a lottery ticket. Pick the tile. But then for someone who's a more seasoned investor, you tell a different story. Hey, OR is a long-term store of value with real yield, real assets, hard assets, fast on the Solana network, and no VCs and no weird cliffs, investing cliffs. So I agree with you, right? I do think that you're probably right that the meme coin guys are a harder sell than the people that are looking for a hard money store value, but we can still kind of pitch to some of those guys. So if you know a degen gambler, pitch them the degen gambler OR. If you know a long-term Bitcoin holder, pitch them the long-term vision of OR. So I think we can kind of pivot there to the audience somewhat.
I think to an extent, yes, but I think we also have to be careful as a community to, understand the value of focus, because I do think that just simple product mechanics, if you're going to try and please everybody, you're going to please nobody. So it's okay to be opinionated.
That is a good point.
And it's okay to, right. It's because, there's this concept of density of attention. And the more we spread ourselves out to every single buyer, the less chances we have of finding critical velocity. So yes, I don't disagree with you. I agree that there's something for everyone. The Motherload is a great example. So just a little bit of lore here. I was mining before Motherload was a thing. And we designed it, and Motherload was shipped by Chad. And I actually won like 60 ORs from the very first Motherload in OR's history.
You did. You won.
I did. Yeah, I won 60 ORs personally.
Please, sir, can have some more.
From the first Motherload in OR's history. That was the number one, because it wasn't a thing initially. But we had a lot of debate, a lot of discussion about shipping it. There were pros and cons, but we did ship it, and I was happy that we shipped it, because I think that a little bit of variability is really good. It was great for attention. And when I won those 60 ORs, the first Motherload, it's a memorable moment for me. And it was like that aha moment where I was like, anybody else in the future who wins a Motherload, or like a good chunk of it, that's very sticky. It's like, it's one of those moments when it really it's really hard to stop mining. Maybe it's not logical, but I could tell that we're gonna be sticky. It was my first impression at that time.
Nice. And so what do you think of Eldorado? It seems like a Motherload on top of a Motherload, a fatherload, if you will. Maybe not, just Eldorado. But I mean, it just keeps, it's another layer.
it is. I think that, so I've been familiar with the concept of Eldorado for a little while. I think there are two things that I think about when it comes to Eldorado. One is it going to impact our inflationary trend? I don't think a lot. I think it'll be fine for the most part. And the trade-off really is how much attention do we command because of Eldorado, right? Because 300 ore in current prices is, what are we talking? Like 9 grand? Is that about 9 grand, give or take?
I guess so. What,
9 or
$38
10
an
grand.
ore? Okay, let's say it is.
Let's say
just
10
say it
grand,
is.
right? Okay, yeah, okay. So it's not it's pretty good, right? Especially if it can happen on a weekly cadence, you know. Does it attract a ton of miners who are going to stick around? If it does, this is great because we already have that 0.2 or kind of delta, if you will, because there's an emissions rate, and the way the rounds work, I think the Eldorado would be fine. I think the inflationary worries are maybe not really that much of a worry. But I would really like to see a lot more miners. To me, it's like we need to increase the number of miners. If Eldorado does that, I'm all for it. And we obviously need to increase the deployment in the mines. So those two kind of go hand in hand. I do think that'll happen, but we need to keep experimenting. I think we're still very early. If anything, I'd love to see it being tried and see does it work or not.
True. Give it a chance. Yeah, I agree. And I think one thing, I don't know if you agree about this subject, but one thing that's popped up is some protocol on liquidity. Now, we can add liquidity. MineMore has a tool on MineMore app to put liquidity on Meteor, I believe. And, you know, when we fell off the $60 price cliff, our liquidity kind of reduced. You know, I'm not sure if quite half is right, just maybe a third, maybe. So what do you think of, at some point in Or's future, perhaps a little bit of that revenue go back into protocol on liquidity? Because in effect, if you lock it specifically, if you lock the liquidity and you deploy it into the full spectrum of the pool, you've essentially burned it, and you've added liquidity to the protocol. Do you have any thoughts on that? You have a lot of, and the reason I ask this is because you have a lot of insight into Or since you've been around so long. Has anything like this been tried aside from a few months ago when the bin issue came up, when HHC tried something new?
Yeah, yes. It's so much I could say.
We'll call it bin gate.
Yes. I'll answer the last thing first and the first thing last. We'll play that game today. I think that there were people in the community during that time that were mercenaries, and they portrayed that experiment in an extremely negative way. And I also think that it was some sort of a coincidence when we dropped a lot in price right around that time. It could have been due to a different reason altogether. So from my perspective, I think that experiment was really important, and I don't think we ran it long enough.
Agreed.
And I also think we got PTSD post that experiment, that we just stopped doing that experiment. So we do need to bring liquidity experiments back. There is obviously hard constraints in how OR works, because we do have limits. We have constraints on the supply. We have constraints on the rate of emissions. However, we can still experiment. It doesn't mean we can't do anything. We definitely don't want to be like Bitcoin, where we don't experiment, or like ever. So liquidity is king. Like, liquidity is super important. In fact, I wrote a thread on this sometime in December, which was essentially, it was titled "Liquidity is Power." And from my perspective, like, if you have scarcity without liquidity, it produces these hordes. And if you have liquidity without sovereignty, it produces these cages. And ore has this amazing opportunity to thread the needle where we can have both. We can have scarcity and we can have liquidity. But we need to keep experimenting. There's a reason why market makers are a thing. And I think there are some interesting exchanges coming out. Like I've heard about Archer, for example, in the space that is looking at the market maker perspective. I think there could be a lot of opportunities for ore to make sure that it's extremely liquid. We do need to be extremely liquid long term. We're not there yet, but I think eventually we will.
Yeah, agreed. One of the things that you need to talk to whales. Like I'm not a whale by any means of the stretch of the imagination. I'm a few coins over the years I've had a lot of. I had a lot of ETH, but when we talk about ETH whales, we're talking about people with thousands of ETH, meme coin whales, whatever. They want to get into a coin, and some of them want to get out. They want to get out rapidly. They want to ride a wave because it's a very mercenary space, as you mentioned. And if there's no liquidity and there's a 10% price impact going in and a 10% price impact going out, they're down 20% off the cuff. So why would they jump into any coin? If ore had those same issues and it was poor liquidity, why would they go in with size? They'd have to really slowly pick away into their position. They'd have to DCA in, and they don't always want to DCA out because, as you know, the volatility of crypto is pretty wild. And on everybody's mind, regardless of what coin you have, you're always worried if the thing is going to go to zero because some smart contract hack, some issue. And so that means you need a lot of liquidity to get out quick. And that's what these whales want. So if we want whales to come into the ore ecosystem and buy with size, we need to ensure that they can do so without big price impacts. And we need to let them out with the same thing, low price impact. So I definitely agree. I'm eager to see if any market makers can help with that regard. I hopefully keep it decentralized because I'm not one for market makers on exchanges. They always want their pound of flesh. They always want their pound of flesh. And I saw that in my last project. They'll help you out, but it's going to cost you in something. It's going to cost you something. So if there's any decentralized market making systems out there that will assist with liquidity on ore, I'm open to those experiments as well. But yeah, that's something everybody should think of. If you have some time to look into liquidity and understand it a little better, it is difficult. You shouldn't hesitate to put a portion of your ore to work in the liquidity pools and let those run and help strengthen the ecosystem, at least until something comes up that is maybe the foundation run where we can get some protocol and liquidity and deepen those pools.
Yeah, I think that, point well taken. I will say that ore is very different than other protocols in the context of it stands on its legs. So we, as a community, have the power, or at least we should assume we have the power, that we can solve the liquidity problem without like putting our hand out as like some sort of favor for market makers. We do have revenue. I do think we should continue to experiment with that to make sure we can have a sustainable solution for the liquidity side of it. I don't have a good answer for it right now, but I do think that ultimately we have the power to do it because we have PMF. Miners are fighting for ore every single minute as we speak, including myself. I'm mining as we speak, and so are many people who are listening to this. And hopefully many people who are listening to this will start mining themselves. But we have to figure out solutions on how to answer this. And we will. I think it will take some time, but we will. And I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, I think we can as a community. It's just that the bin system and on Ethereum, you'd have Uniswap v3, if I recall. All those got things really confusing. When Liquidity originally launched with just the V2 model, where it was full spectrum liquidity. It was pretty simple, pretty easy to understand. But as things do and get more complex, I think it's kind of scared some people away from adding liquidity to pools when it can be quite lucrative. But more intensive management is required. Rebalancing your position, impermanent loss and so forth. But that's a subject for another time. But it's been on my mind as well lately. I know Starship Fonk, it's been on his mind, his devious mind. He's listening to us right now. And he's added some liquidity. Thank you for that. Thank you for your commitment to the community, Starship Fonk. But yeah, that's something I think we can handle. I think it should be encouraged by HHC, maybe a hat tip. My previous protocol did it in a unique way. It just threw a little bit of incentive through the Uniswap front end, if I recall. A Polygon. It was I can't remember the Polygon DEX, but yeah, he would say, hey, if you add liquidity, I'm going to incentivize you with a little bit of emissions from the token into the liquidity pool. So you got not only the liquidity APY, but you also got some token on top of it. So there's all kinds of ways this can be handled, and just a little hat tip to the community goes a long way. So I hope that the team and the foundation, for that matter, will help guide the community towards something like that. But enough about liquidity. Let's see, we are 36 in. So tell me, aside from your experiences in OR, have you found anything outside of OR in this ecosystem that has sparked your interest? Any other unique experiments that we can learn from that you could apply to something like OR? In my mind, I can't think of many products quite like OR, but there's always something to learn and always something to pick brains on. So is there anything, lessons from greater crypto sphere, that you think we could apply as a community to OR?
That's a great question. I would say that obviously, in my mind, OR is quite unique, and there's something to learn from every experiment, every token in theory. I will probably point our attention to perhaps I would say Meta in the context of Futarchy. I think that's interesting in a theoretical way. I do think OR has a chance to think about governance in a perhaps a novel way and figure that out, because ultimately right now we have revenue, and I think people seem to not understand that fact, but we have revenue which 95% of crypto can't say. They are operating on inflationary, thin air, made up stuff to sustain themselves, and that's why they're going bankrupt. But we do have revenue, and we will likely continue to have revenue as long as we have belief in OR. What we need to do is organize ourselves, and we need to figure out how do we govern a protocol that has ambitions to be a store of value for the world. I think that is an unsolved problem. I wrote about this, I think, a month or two ago on what to do once we start having revenue. So I think there's opportunity for us to come up with new primitives which allow us to manage this protocol. There's still management needed, and the decisions, I ran a poll on this actually, which I was curious about the community's interest, and the poll was essentially like, how should OR be governed? And there's a few different options. The one that won out was essentially a small team that is empowered to make decisions, that is highly accountable. So we do need to think about accountability. We need to think about how do we take OR from where it is now to something that has 10,000 daily active users to 20,000 daily active users and beyond. But yeah, a lot to learn. I think Meta is interesting. There are probably some other tokens out there that are interesting as well. But mostly my attention is on Solana and OR with a little bit of Bitcoin here and there.
Yeah, perfect. And I think governance is a sticky situation, right? You don't want to over-govern from the community side, because then you bog down the team, and you don't want the team to run in isolation, because then you have no idea what they're doing and you have no insight into the product. I think for my last product project I worked for. I think it's, it doesn't have to be team versus community. You can have community elected individuals that are part of the team on oversight. And I don't think we need to reinvent the wheel. I don't know much about Futarchy, so forgive me for not having that educational background in this particular asset in the Solana space, but just the C-suite and board of directors style governance might work out well. You've got your foundation C-suite, I guess you'd call them, people in charge of marketing, development, so forth, and then a board of directors elected from the community, and the C-suite could have their own positions on the pool, and these board of directors will be able to oversee, add KPIs, add focus to where the foundation goes, because it works. It's worked in TradFi for a long time. The main problem is, of course, KYC and so forth and that.
So yeah, Brian, I would push back a little bit here. Now, don't take it personally, right? This is just
personally
me.
Taken.
Yeah, don't get angry, right? I know you're from Texas. I'm from Chicago. We might have some powwow.
We're in the same
about
time
this.
zone.
But we're in the same time zone today.
Yeah, we're like brothers.
But what I would say is that I think for a globally accepted store of value, we do need to have governance that works beyond a handful of people. And Futarchy has its flaws. It's not like I'm a huge Futarchy fan and like that's how things should work. But it does allow an avenue where you can have anybody with the internet connection and a wallet to express their views on a governance topic, which could be useful. Sometimes it's not useful. Perhaps you don't want certain decisions to be decided by folks who have no domain knowledge. But that being said, in certain contexts, I do think Futarchy could be useful, but I think it's part of something, not the whole of something, as far as governance goes, especially in the context of OR.
Yeah, is Futarchy something that would be token weighted? I don't know anything about Futarchy, so if you have a short spiel as to how that would be integrated with OR, but if it's token weighted, of course, then we always have the whale with the oversized bag who has a massive say in protocol votes. That's something typical of a DAO that can be negative. If they're negative for the protocol,
no, they do have. Yeah, so good question. I was actually part of Futarchy experiment a while ago. This may be a year ago. I don't remember. But it actually exhibited really interesting properties, which was kind of anti-whale, right? There was enough mechanism there to prevent whales from influencing a decision. So I think they have like a pass. Yeah, they have a pass-fail kind of market. Ultimately, I do think they have a lot of work to simplify their system so it's accessible to normies and people who want to govern their protocol. I am not I don't think Futarchy is the answer for everything. I think in some particular cases, it's a great way to engage the community and continue to decentralize yourself. Because you don't want OR long-term to be run by 3 people, right? I don't think that's good for the protocol. I think if we're going to be a store of value for the world, which I have big ambitions for OR, and everybody who's working on OR shares that ambition, we do need to figure out solutions that work beyond 3 or 4 people deciding everything.
Yeah, totally agree. I mean, we could also hear me out, the OR Senate, the OR Congress, the OR Judicial Branch, the OR Executive Branch. No, I'm joking. That's not what I want. Make it completely muddy.
You had me there for a second. I was like, do I need to jump out of my screen and strangle this guy? Or
oh
what?
my gosh! Oh my gosh! No, guys, trust me. I might run for a seat of OR Congress. That'd be fine. But I need to be paid excessive amounts of money to do nothing. So that's my plan. That's my retirement plan. So if ore becomes a store of value, please vote for me. No, those are good points. I will look into Futarchy, so I get a little more educated on what it would entail should ore become governed in such a fashion. So definitely interesting, and I haven't done my homework on that enough to get knowledgeable with it. So yeah, I agree. We don't want it run by 3 or 4 people with massive bags. Could you guys imagine Jammy just running everything like Jammy does? I shudder. I fear the Jammy. I fear him. He was listening, by the way. He left, so shame. All right. Yes. Short term. Let's talk short term for ore. We don't like to talk price go up, price go down, but man, there's so much weight in the crypto space right now. Gosh, the mines are lucrative. The P&L is good. It's good time to mine. Miners in control. I think I saw 17 or 18, maybe 19% on that excellent website. The name escapes me right now, but when miners are in control, we should have. What is the stat there? Let me pull it up actually. 1 second, guys. Or mine or analytics circulating the mine. Here we go. Miners take over 17%. Time remaining 9 months. Expected date January 12th, 2027. So miner power represents the total unclaimed ore held by all miners. Okay. So what do you think of this tool? You've gone to ore circulating 4.xyz, correct? I'm sure you're familiar with it.
Yep, I'm very familiar with that tool. Yes.
The target is 30% of miners take over. Perhaps if you could kind of expand, I know this isn't if it is or isn't your project, I don't know, but if you understand the graph and how this works, what happens when miners take over?
Yes, great question. Actually, a little bit of lore. That 30% came from something I said, and the developer kind of ran with it. That's how the chart was made.
You had your hand in it.
What's that?
You had your hand in it.
Well,
you set the target.
I don't, sort of, but I'm not the developer. I think the developer is awesome. He's got great ideas, and I do support his work, but I don't have like any financial ties at all to this project. But I do find it very interesting. I think ultimately, going back to your question, well, what happens when miner takes over? It's a really good question. And I think it's actually slept on. I think for a lot of people, they don't functionally understand what happens when miners are in charge. And the reason they don't understand it is because there's no other token like this. Most tokens are controlled by a handful of people who have massive bags and they can control the price. But what happens on ore when miners take over is that you are left with extreme price shocks to the upside. The reason for that is that miners are if you look at any sort of chart, any data, miners are sticky. Typically, whale miners have invested a lot of time in understanding the project. They've invested a lot of their capital in deployment to the mines, and they understand the power of refined ore. And they're not here for like a few weeks or even a few months. They have very long time frame. So when miners, so the 30% target was reflexive in some ways. So my thought process was if 30% is controlled by miners, for the rest of the world, that's a signal that, well, it's 30% now, it's going to be 40% soon, and it could be 50% down the road. And at some point, what happens is ore is locked up into the miner's hand, and every buy sends a supply shock and a price increase because there just isn't enough ore in the market. We're in a bear market, so we're probably not seeing that right now. But I do think long term, if the trend holds, we're in for like a hockey stick growth in price at some point, TBD.
I see. And even though the price has been dropping, the chart domination and progress has been climbing just by a percentage. But a percentage here is quite a big deal because the overall target is 30% and currently at 17%. And it's going up. So as the price drops, miners are more in domination because they're storing more ore. Is that what it's trying to tell us? They're holding more ore?
Well, I don't think so. The price drop is not necessarily related to miner accumulation. So I think the miners are accumulating because they believe in the project long term. So what happens at some point, the 30% target really is a sign that, hey, over time, there's enough people in this world who believe in the project to accumulate unrefined ore. And when we're at 30%, it's a signal that it's likely going to keep going up. And when most of the ore is out of the market, guess what happens with even a small buy? Price goes up, and it stays up because these miners they were never in it for a quick sell, right? So you have to think about the psychology of a miner. They believed in the project for completely different valuation. In their mind, it's a multi-billion-dollar coin. It doesn't matter if it's a few hundred million in valuation. That's not even close to the target. So I do think it's really a matter of who controls the supply. And do believers control the supply, or do we have mercenaries controlling the supply? And I think ore is set up beautifully, even in this bear market, to transfer the coins from the hands of the paper hands, non-believers, mercenaries, to people who believe in it. And the store of value at the end of the day is a belief system. We have to have belief. So yeah, I think it's working as intended. It's going to take a little time for it to play out.
Well, good point. Good point. Yes, the miners in control being the true believers. And you said the psychology of the miners. I'm going through the ore chat bar, and man, some of this, like, I don't want to get into the psychology of the miners reading some of these chats. It's just too much. But regardless of what they say, they're believers. Spongy to cake. There's some good stuff in here if you go scroll up. So these guys are gaming it. These guys are looking at it as a long term, and they've been here, they come back. So you see these same faces in the miner chat over and over, just like you mentioned. These are the true believers. I see people we see on Discord all the time in the miners chat, and they're all still here, even in the depths of what I think is probably the worst bear market I've ever experienced, sentiment-wise. It's just nobody believes in anything anymore. Yet we still have a community that believes in ore. So that's important. One other thing I think is important for any community is how active it is in the bear, right? We're still slowed down from where it was as we go around the precipice of the bear. Right before 10:10, things were really hopping. Things were really busy on all Discords all over the place. Not everyone, but they were pretty busy. So in general, we've seen a downtrend of activity. However, you can still go to ore, you can still go to the Discord, you can still go to the chat on the chat box and see there's people here, they're having fun. And for me personally, I think one of the indicators of should I buy a token is how much fun are they having in the Discord or Telegram, right? Because a sticky community comes back, they joke with each other, they black pill each other on the price, they beat each other up, and then when the price goes up, it's like a roller coaster. You're all celebrating together. You're celebrating the ups and downs. So I think that's one of the things that attracts me to ore is the community has been very steady. Maybe they're not visiting as often because it's a bear market. People are, suffering with higher gas prices and less disposable income. But in general, I think we have maintained a good community thanks to people like Starship Frank always jumping in, always, punching back and keeping the chat alive. So thank you guys. And thank you too, because you're also there very frequently, always checking in as well as so many of the other listeners on this very spaces. So, we have to be active in the community. We have to continue to shill and just make sure it's an inviting place. Make sure it's fun. Don't argue about BMWs. Okay, just don't do it. We're not going to do that again. We're definitely not going to do that again. So, just make sure people get the idea of ore and do your part. So thank you guys for actually being out there. Everybody who's constantly in the chats, keep chatting. Chat about anything. Show pictures of steak.
Yeah, well, I was going to add one point here, which is very unusual for a token to attract so many community developers. And
True.
what we have seen with
Spiderweb of ecosystem.
Yes, I mean, we're currently a sub $20 million market cap coin, but when you look at the ecosystem devs that are involved, it acts as if it's $1 billion coin. And I do think that people should index on that, because how often
Shows the
do you
health of the
see,
protocol.
well, I'm just saying, how often do you see a sub $20 million coin that has this much involvement from ecosystem devs? It never happens. And the reason it's happening with OR is that there is a lot of belief in the core group. And when that happens, the best thing you can do is something that I say often, which is buy OR, mine OR, covet OR. You have to respect what OR has done and get on the train.
Yeah, and I agree with you 100%. I think one of the things that makes people comfortable building here is that we are, OR is VC free, right? Who would want to build something that could dump to oblivion because, some vesting cliffs, right? That's something that nobody wants. And down from the first buyer to the builders on the ecosystem, they don't want it. They don't want Dump-a-thon 5,000 or rug 5,000. They want something that's smartly built. They want something with liquidity, and they want something where there's no vesting cliff. So happy to be here. VC free was a major attractant to me for OR. Major attractant for me for any token, really. VCs have, they've destroyed a lot in this space. They have. You might think they're good or bad, but they take their pound of flesh like everyone else and right off the retail buyer's back, right off their leg. That's where the pound of flesh comes from. You can't even walk after they get done with you. You walk with a limp because they rugged you so hard. I'm looking at you, Ina token. But yeah, this has been a wonderful chat, coming up on an hour. I know the Mind More team are staying up late to host this OR Insiders chat. So I guess, is there any closing thoughts, or maybe anybody from the audience wants to pop in here for a minute or two max and share some thoughts on OR? If not, we can kind of close it up here.
Well, I do appreciate Spuddy, Wild, and Brian for inviting me. It was a great opportunity for me to talk about OR. I frequently write about OR. I'm at Poker Chess Man, talking about OR as MadHatter. So if you like the show, if you like the coin, definitely come check out what the community's cooking up. And yeah, really appreciate you bringing me on here.
Yeah, it's always fun to have more people from the community step up and kind of share their experience with this ecosystem. It's always interesting conversations. There's a lot to talk about. There's a lot to share. And we'll get to my bird story one day too, Spuddy. So, we'll make sure to put that on an episode.
But time. I'll have to host, and we can have you speaking instead one time.
Oh yeah, I've got too
I'm
many
not nearly
stories.
as smooth as you though, so
No, it's okay.
we'll have to
I've got
take the
so
rough
much
with
stuff
this
is
week,
happening. I've even had ghost stories. It's just nuts.
Well, you did say there was a little story about an Amish man.
Oh my gosh, yes. So well,
yes.
for a future time, but yeah,
That's
put me
for
on the
another
roster. I'd be
time.
happy. I'd be happy
Absolutely.
to. I saved an Amish man's private area. That's all I'm going to say, because you'll have to tune in one day to hear about it. All right, guys.
All right, guys. Thank you very much, MadHatter, for coming up and speaking. Thank you very much, Brian, for hosting.
Thank
As
you.
always, you've both done a fantastic job. So if anyone's missed this has been recorded, and it'll be up on our Spotify account, it'll be up on YouTube, and it'll be up on our Apple podcasts that we also have posted now as well.
Awesome.
And recorded on X as well, so you can come and listen at your leisure as and when.
Thanks for tuning in to OR Insiders, where we go beyond the charts and hear from the people building, mining, and sticking through every cycle. Hard hat back on. Pickaxe up. We'll be back in 2 weeks with more signal from the mines. Until next time, take care and keep swinging.